The greedy farmer's downfall. In the heart of a peaceful village called Nkrumah, there lived a farmer named Kofi. From the outside, Kofi appeared to be a hard worker, always busy on his farm, from sunrise to sunset. But deep down, Kofi was driven by greed. He had the largest farm in the village, yet he wanted more land, more crops, more wealth. He didn't care about his neighbors or the balance of nature. He only cared about filling his barns to the brim. One early morning, as the sun's golden rays kissed the earth, Kofi stood at the edge of his farm, gazing over his fields of maize, yams, and cassava. His heart was not content. "I need more land," he muttered, his eyes scanning the small farms of his neighbors. "If only I could have all the land in this village, I would be the richest man in all the land." Kofi's thoughts were interrupted when he noticed an old man, hunched over with a walking stick, slowly making his way toward him. The old man was known as Kojo, the village elder, wise and respected by everyone. He lived a simple life, but his words carried the weight of generations. "Kofi," the old man called out in a shaky voice, "your farm is bountiful. Why do you look troubled?" Kofi, trying to hide his greedy thoughts, forced a smile. "Oh, Elder Kojo, I just wish to work harder to provide more for my family." Kojo nodded thoughtfully. "Hard work is good, but remember, the land is not only yours, it belongs to nature, and to take more than you need will only bring sorrow." Kofi brushed off the elder's advice, pretending to listen but already plotting how to expand his farm. That very night, when the village was asleep, Kofi snuck out and began marking the boundaries of his neighbors' lands as his own. He believed no one would notice, and in the morning, he hired workers from another village to clear the land. Weeks passed, and Kofi's new fields began to grow. His barns overflowed with harvests. But then strange things started happening. The rain, which once fell regularly, stopped. The skies turned a dull gray, and the crops withered under the hot sun. One by one, Kofi's plants began to die, leaving his once fertile fields dry and cracked. Panicked, Kofi went to the river to fetch water for his crops, but to his shock, the river had dried up. He rushed back to the village, desperate for answers. As he neared his farm, he saw Elder Kojo standing at the edge of the barren fields. "Kofi," the old man said, his voice full of sorrow, "nature does not take kindly to greed. You took more than you needed, and now the land has turned its back on you." Tears welled up in Kofi's eyes. He had ignored the balance of nature and disrespected the wisdom of his elders. The riches he had once dreamed of now seemed far out of reach as he looked over his desolate farm. His greed had cost him everything. Kofi fell to his knees, staring at the cracked earth beneath him. His heart pounded in his chest, heavy with regret. The wealth he had sought now felt like a distant dream, replaced by the harsh reality of his barren fields. "Elder Kojo," Kofi whispered, his voice trembling, "I was wrong. I let greed blind me. What can I do now? How do I fix this?" The old man looked at Kofi with pity, then slowly knelt beside him. "The earth is a living thing, Kofi. It gives when we treat it with care, but it withdraws when we take without thought. To heal what you've broken, you must give back, not just to the land, but to your people." "But how?" Kofi asked, wiping his face, his fingers stained with the dust of his dead crops. "I have nothing left." Kojo smiled gently, his eyes full of understanding. "You have more than you think. You have your hands, your strength, and most importantly, you have the chance to change." Kofi's heart swelled with both guilt and a flicker of hope. He knew that the elder was right. He had been selfish, thinking only of himself, but perhaps there was a way to make things right. That night, Kofi couldn't sleep. The elder's words echoed in his mind, and he realized what he had to do. The next morning, Kofi gathered the entire village under the baobab tree at the center of Nkrumah. His neighbors, many of whom had suffered from his greed, stood with crossed arms and narrowed eyes, unsure of what he was planning. "My friends, my neighbors," Kofi began, his voice thick with emotion, "I have wronged you. I took land that was not mine, and I let my greed harm this village. I have come to ask for your forgiveness, and I wish to give back what I stole." The villagers murmured among themselves, surprised by Kofi's words. They had never seen him so humble. One by one, they stepped forward, listening as Kofi explained how he planned to divide his land among the village, and how he would work alongside them to restore the balance. "Together, we can plant new seeds, share the harvest, and care for the land as one," Kofi said, bowing his head. "I do not deserve your help, but I ask for it anyway." The silence hung in the air until finally Elder Kojo stepped forward, his cane tapping the earth as he approached. He placed a hand on Kofi's shoulder and said, "True change begins in the heart. If you are sincere, then we, as a village, will stand with you." The other villagers nodded, some still skeptical, but willing to give Kofi a second chance. Over the next few weeks, they worked together, tilling the land, sharing seeds, and planting crops that belonged to everyone. Kofi, for the first time in his life, felt a sense of community. The land that once felt like a possession now felt like a gift, something to be nurtured and shared. As time passed, the rains returned. Slowly, the crops began to sprout again, green and full of life. Kofi's heart swelled with gratitude every time he saw the small shoots pushing up from the soil. The village of Nkrumah flourished once more, but this time it was not because of one man's wealth, but because of the unity of the people. Kofi never forgot the lesson he had learned. He worked hard, not for himself, but for the good of all. And in return, the land gave back to him, not in gold or riches, but in something far more valuable, the love and respect of his people. Though Kofi had fallen from greed, he rose again with humility, and in that he found the greatest treasure of all.